Coming up, we hear from the red carpet and the Osage consultants who worked on the film Killers of the Flower Moon. Plus, we take you to Winnipeg, where Wab Kinew takes office as the 25th Premier of the Province of Manitoba. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The ICT Newscast is sponsored by the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, a nonprofit organization serving American Indian nations and people in the recovery and control of their rightful homelands. On the web at iltf.org.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amadawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. We start today in Colorado, where a university is taking steps to repatriate the remains of 25 ancestors held in a museum collection. Western Colorado University is working with 4 tribes to return the remains and more than 100 objects of funerary or cultural significance. The institution recently received an $80,000 federal grant to work on its compliance with a 1990 federal law requiring the repatriation. The items were looted from burial sites in the Durango area in the 1920s and 30s. The university expects the return process to take an additional 2 years. Moving to New York, one of the nation's leading scientific and cultural institutions is overhauling its policies on human remains. The American Museum of Natural History is removing exhibit elements that include human remains from 12 display cases, according to an open letter from the museum's president. In addition, the institution will create new procedures to return human remains to their descendant communities, but that process will take time. Federal law since 1990 has stated that the remains of Native Americans held by certain institutions must be returned. The museum holds the remains of about 12,000 individuals. 26% of those are from Native Americans. In Minnesota, a school is trying to mitigate the effects of tainted water. At the Bugone-Gashig School in Minnesota, forever chemicals have found their way into the water. It has been months since PFAs were detected in the water, and there's still no agreement on a solution to fix the issue. The federal government has a legal obligation to protect tribes, as outlined in over 400 treaties it has entered into since the 18th century. The school was at first using bottled water to prepare lunches and shipped in large amounts of water from elsewhere. However, that method is increasingly impractical. Forever chemicals, otherwise known as PFAs, are linked to a range of diseases, including diabetes and heart disease. The chemicals have been around for about 5 decades, but only found to have serious consequences just over a decade ago. An Arizona grand jury has indicted 3 people who operated a center for Native Americans battling substance abuse on felony charges related to Medicaid fraud. State officials say a program called A Better You billed the state and federal governments more than $115 million for behavioral health services between December 2021 and February 2023. A 19-count indictment alleges that a portion of that amount was fraudulently charged. Charges that state prosecutors say are fraudulent were submitted mostly through an American Indian health program called a Medicaid health plan that allows providers to bill directly for reimbursement of services rendered to Native Americans and Alaska Natives. Last month, the center shut down and at least 200 Native American clients were homeless. A door sign posted by a resident of the Ocotillo Apartments and Hotel in Tucson, Arizona, said, "If I had somewhere else to go, I would. Until further notice, I will be exercising my rights." Attorney General Chris Mays and Governor Katie Hobbs in May announced the massive investigation into billing fraud. Since then, the state has identified and suspended more than 300 providers on credible allegations of fraud. We head now to New York, where an art installation is calling on the community to give land back to Indigenous people. Earlier this month, an art installation titled "The World's Unfair," put on by Indigenous collective New Red Order, was on display in Long Island City, Queens. The exhibition put on a carnival-like atmosphere to draw in non-Native people with art that included land back sentiments. Passerbys watched as a talking animatronic tree and beaver chatted about land and private property and viewed other spectacles in advocating for reclaiming Indigenous land. The goal of the installation was to convince people to give public and private land back to the people who once occupied it. The installation was put on by Ojibwe brothers Zach and Adam Khalil and Tlingit citizen Jackson Pollies. According to the artists in a statement, while giving land back to Indigenous people may seem unattainable, the purpose of art is to help people imagine the unimaginable. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. It was opening weekend for Killers of the Flower Moon, a film based on the murders of Osage tribal citizens in the 1920s. ICT's Paris Wise spoke with some of the Osage consultants at the red carpet premiere in Los Angeles. This reporting was done in partnership with FNX. Take a look.
On Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles, producers, consultants, crew, and tribal members flooded the red carpet for the premiere of The Killers of the Flower Moon, followed by a showing of the film inside the Dolby Theater. This was one of many events where members of the Osage Nation came together to celebrate and represent their community.
I was able to see the movie at the Tulsa premiere with Osages, a lot of people in the Osage Nation. And I also had the opportunity to go to New York City for the first premiere, and that was so much fun. And so seeing it now for the third time, I'm very excited because I'm going to look at more of the designs in the movie. I'm going to pay more attention to the clothing, I think. It does tell a deep history, a deep story, and I'm very excited for others to learn that and experience that. And it's a beautiful movie, very well executed. We are represented very well. And I'm just so excited to see it again. I was the Osage Nation princess during all of filming, and I was able to participate in the first day of filming where I was able to perform the Lord's Prayer in Indian Sign Language. I also was able to participate in the last day of filming where a bunch of our Osage community came together, and I'm not going to give that many spoilers, you can see it in the movie, but I was so grateful to be a part of that because I was with my people, and this movie is surrounding my people, and so that's why I thought it was so important that we were all together.
I swell with pride each time I see it, and then I hurt like the Dickens when I see something that, just really strikes me. But everyone wants to talk about seeing it in Cannes, and how fabulous was that? For me, all the takeaways from New York, from London, from Cannes, the best time I ever saw it was with the 700 Osage people that helped make the film in Tulsa when we were able to do that in July. And it just really is, that was just such a special moment to be able to do that. And for Imperative and for Apple and for Marty's team to be able to help put that together and make that happen and really drive that home, that was a very important moment. And really, I just encourage everyone to go buy tickets, go see this film. The larger audiences, the more the impact it will have and positively on Indian country, really.
It's been crazy. I mean, just like seeing family from Fairfax and like Oklahoma and period on a red carpet for the Killers of the Flower Moon. It's been really surreal. Just also being able to meet like Martin Scorsese, just because he wants to be involved. He wants to do everything right. So it's very surreal.
The making of the film brought opportunities for Osage Nation members to be involved in the process and to have new experiences in an industry where Natives are still seldom seen. The plot of the film is a very real history of the Osage and the violent crimes committed against them. While hearing directly from Native communities is imperative in successful storytelling, it does not go without having to earn trust. Academy Award-winning filmmaker Martin Scorsese's involvement in this story of the Osage Nation has bred new relationships and learning opportunities for everyone involved.
I mean, I'm an artist, so it was walking hand in hand pretty well. And then obviously being Osage and being so connected to the film, I felt like I had to tell this story for them, for them and my grandparents and how proud they would be. And I mean, there were many nights where I was pacing around in my backyard like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I just want to make the right decision. And if I didn't know, I'd be like, we gotta talk to an elder. I'm not there yet, so, and he was just so welcoming, and I don't know, he just handled it so well. Well, Marty, we refer to him as Winzeki Marty now, so because he's like uncle, and he took that in so well, and he was like, yeah, he got it. He's so integrated now. We took him to the dances, and he sat with us, and we'd sit and discuss like, oh, okay, why are they doing that? What are over here? It was just, he was so graceful.
I just tell people he's a regular old guy. He's funny, but he's serious. And when he's serious, and he's kind of like, older Indians, they're real funny at times, and they'll cut up and you never know when it's going to happen, but they're also real serious, and they can be real serious and real funny at the drop in turn of a hat. And he's really easy to talk to. He's very engaged when he's talking to you. I can just feel the need for knowledge, and I don't know if anybody else could have made this film the way that he did in fostering respect and trust, because Indians don't trust very well, and we have a reason why we don't. And it took a while. There was a lot of folks that weren't sure about this. There's still going to be some that aren't going to be sure about this, but we took the opportunity to do the best job that we could to put it out there so that hopefully whoever decides to watch this and learn about Native Americans or Indians or Osages, Wajages, or anybody else, that they take the time to dig in and find out that there's great history there. There's great relationships there. And, so much history of the Americas aren't told because of it. And I hope that it gets an interest for everyone to say, who are those folks? What happened to them? Just like the Greenwood Massacre. You don't hear much about it. It happened in Tulsa about the same time. And we learn about it, we know about it, but so many people don't. I think it matters how much the production team and or director or the studio, however it works in Hollywood, because this is my first time to ever, work in movies. I think it matters how much they respect human beings first, and secondly, how much they respect someone's culture, someone's tradition, and then how much time they decide that they were going to immerse themselves in that and let it absorb through their skin. A lot of times I would have to call some of our elders. Most times I called our elders when there was a question in that sense, and called 2 or 3 or 4 of them, just so I could get an accurate telling of the situation they might be asking about. There were times that they would ask questions, but we didn't know, because historically, no one's alive from that era. And they had to rely on what type of documentation was there, or, Indian way is storytelling.
Reaching new heights in Native representation in Hollywood can bring these stories to those who have never heard them before, but the reactions and impacts back home are what matter most.
I'm anxious to hear what people's reactions are. I mean, I know they're like, it's like 98% Rotten Tomato. I'm like, I don't know what the Rotten Tomato thing means. Not that I don't care, but I want to know what actual people think within Native communities too. Like, not just, I don't know. It's going so big that I'm anxious to hear what other people's thoughts are on it. Yeah. We got to start healing. It's opening conversations that we never had, and our grandparents, they didn't get to talk about it. So yeah, I think that's the most important thing.
I hope that it doesn't bring trauma. However, we suffer from generational trauma. This film is definitely doesn't define us, but it definitely is a portion of our history that has shaped us. So I hope that what we come away with is that we're still here. You can make a difference in the trajectory of a film, and your voice has power.
I think that it's going to have a very strong impact on those back home, just seeing themselves in the film in many different ways. And I don't mean just the people who were actually in the film itself, but the people who see themselves and their grandparents and their great-grandparents and their ancestors in the film. I think that it's going to impact them in such a way. I hope it fills them with pride. I hope it fills them with a sense of themselves and that they can move forward in the world in a really strong way and not feel undermined or taken advantage of any longer.
I want them to know that even after everything we went through and everything you see in the movie, that we're still here and we're still doing the same things we were doing 100 years ago. So we're very traditional and we're very resilient. So
In Los Angeles, California, Paris Wise, ICT News.
We are the breath of this land and national parks. Listen, and you will hear our ancestors at these sacred places. We are indigenous to these lands, the original caretakers. The stories that tie this nation together. We are our ancestors, the hope of the future. We will not be forgotten.
My name is Giselle Richards, and I'm a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and I support our Native men. A lot of us come from communities where violence is common, but violence, especially domestic violence, is not normal. If you or someone you love is experiencing violence, it is not your fault. If you feel unsafe, let a trusted friend know or a loved one. If you're not sure who to talk to, there are always people ready to help. If you or someone you love needs help, there are resources ready. Call the Strong Hearts Native Helpline today at 1-844-7-NATIVE or 844-762-8483. It is a 24/7 Native helpline where you can safely speak with a Native relative. You can also visit strongheartshelpline.org to chat with a Native relative online. You are important, your life matters, and I believe in you. It takes help to heal. Reach out today.
We turn now to Manitoba, Canada, to witness the swearing in of the first First Nation provincial premier in Canadian history. Wab Kinew, who is Anishinaabe, swept to a majority victory in the Manitoba provincial election on October 3rd. ICT's Canadian correspondent Miles Morriso was there.
So thank you so much for this honor. Miigwech and merci.
Wab Kinew made history when he won election as Manitoba's premier on October 3rd, but he didn't stop there. He appointed the first Indigenous women into Manitoba's cabinet and appointed the first Black deputy premier of the province. His swearing-in ceremony was heavy on Indigenous representation, with greetings from all 7 Indigenous nations in Manitoba and an honor song by the Dakota Drum. In addition, he took his oath of office not with his hand on a Bible, but holding on to his sacred pipe.
And I want to say that I understand the challenge before us, but I greet it with optimism, humility, integrity, and sincerity, because I have been inspired by you, the people of Manitoba, to know one thing. The way that we do difficult things in this province is by doing them together.
Former Judge Murray Sinclair presided over the ceremony. The former chair of the country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission called the moment a true act of reconciliation. Witnesses were moved by the ceremony.
Oh, it's colossal. I mean, it changes the whole dynamic of how we're seen by the general public, then I think it really leads us out of the woods in a lot of ways. I love it. I love it. And like in so many different reasons, it's time. It's time right now. So.
When Wab became premier, it made me look at myself at how much I don't see the growth of our people. I've never imagined a Native person to be premier, let alone First Nation of Manitoba, But now we have leadership in a government system that now will work with us in the traditional way, the respectful way that we lead our nations as individuals. It's powerful, man.
In Winnipeg, Manitoba, Miles Morrisseau, special correspondent for ICT News.
Miles told us that he agreed with Beach and Ranville, saying this was a powerful moment to witness. We asked Miles about his own thoughts.
It was a celebration. It was, you could just feel it throughout the whole morning, the anticipation as people began to gather. They were setting up the drum. They had a fiddle and a square dance troupe, and center as well started with the lighting of the kulik, which is the Inuit sacred fire that they have. That is usually a beluga oil or seal oil, and so that was lit to begin the event. So it was very ceremonial and very much a celebration, and everybody there was just in such great spirits. And that's part of this. The way things are going to start, as they call the early days of any kind of government, is there's a bit of a honeymoon. And I think we started off in Manitoba with a party. You just could feel the optimism. A chance that the change was in the air, and a lot of the decisions that he had made as he put his cabinet forward, incredibly diverse, gender equal cabinet, and a lot of voices that represent the entire province. And the Indigenous history was so much a part of this celebration of this really incredible, historic victory. We can't, forget the fact that this is the first First Nations premier of a province in this country's history. And so all of those things, they came together in this really lovely moment with all these people coming together, and the dancing and the ceremonial part of it all made it feel very special, very sacred, and a really good way to start off this new government. He's been, it started as a rapper and as an on-air personality. He hosted a series focused on Indigenous youth across Canada, and it was a really big moment as we begin to acknowledge that this is a significant population. This is over 20% of the population in Manitoba identifies as Indigenous. That is a very young population as well. And he spoke with that kind of aspirational message for young people to say, literally, look at me, look where I came from. I've made mistakes. I was wrong. Got in trouble with the law. Had lyrics in his music that were attacking homophobic lyrics, misogynistic lyrics, things like that. He acknowledged in his book that he wrote, his memoir autobiography, about growing from that and learning, being taken to task by people who he respected, to say, look, this is wrong. This is not the way we are. We need to be more inclusive. And then you see that growth and that vision coming into the legislative offices of the province of Manitoba. But he will be, being expected to deliver on healthcare, which is a huge, that's a big task. That's an expensive task. There's a lot of work there. And people are going to, be looking to put his feet to the fire at a certain point. And I think as well for Indigenous people and in the Indigenous community as well, that they will, as expecting to be heard wanting to be heard and wanting to see change that comes with this new type of leadership. And so, and beyond that, well, who's to say? He's 41 years old. He's taking on a difficult task, and it'll be interesting to see how things move forward to him. I mean, is potentially the next first Indigenous Prime Minister of Canada. Who's to say? That may be way too early in days to speculate on that. But certainly a great feeling to be part of a historic moment, and to share that with people. And I feel that you've seen something special here, and we can enjoy the day. We can enjoy this early honeymoon phase and see how things, progress. I think there's a lot of young Indigenous people that are looking at this young man and saying, I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen, but here we are. And that's good to see.
Miles Morrisseau is a special correspondent for ICT covering Canada. He's a citizen of the Métis Nation and is based in Grand Rapids, Manitoba. Well, be sure to join us on the next ICT Newscast, where we talk to Deanne Whitehawk. She's just been named a MacArthur Fellow and has received a 5-year no-strings-attached grant. She tells us she describes her art as informed by a Sicangu worldview. And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.